Welcome in, guys. What's going on, Scolders? We are back for another episode post draft. We got Tom, Pat, and myself here. Obviously, we broke down the first round, the night of the draft, some live reactions, and what we thought in the moment. Now, a few days removed from the total draft, we know not only the two guys we took on night one, but the other handful of players that are going to be lacing up for the purple and gold come this fall. Mini camps, OTAs about to get underway, so pretty exciting stuff for the rookies. We'll talk about what we think on the other draft picks that we got, and then just kind of our total thoughts for what to expect year one, if we have any thoughts right away or if we think it's going to take a little more time to get to know them. Then, how about our Timberwolves? Finally getting the job done like we thought they could. We were skeptical. I think all of us were. We'll get into that a little bit. Completing the sweep. So pretty cool. Just in the whole realm of Minnesota sports as a total. Like never happened before. First sweep in history of Minnesota sports.
Isn't that just
Yeah.
sad and pathetic?
Let's start off with that. It is sad. But hey, we'll take it, right?
I am so glad that I actually tuned in. This was some of the best basketball that I've ever watched a Minnesota team play. The defense it's suffocating. It's incredible. The hustle, the cohesive unit that they are, and in their switching and their rotations. I mean, it is so fun to watch. I can't believe I've been missing out on this all year.
It is incredible to see this happening. If we go back and think about the like Luke Ridnour, Ramon Sessions, like we were excited for those things, and here we are sweeping the Phoenix Suns in the first round of the playoffs, and a potential juggernaut matchup going into round two with the Denver Nuggets defending champions. So this is just unheard of, as Kev mentioned. Never happened before in Minnesota, and it just feels like Anthony Edwards has taken that next step into superstardom. I don't know if you guys saw the statistics out there, but he is the most viewed superstar, or the second most searched
Behind
superstar in
LeBron.
behind LeBron in the NBA right now, which is just remarkable. He's so charismatic and just a highlight reel waiting to happen every single time he touches the ball. And he's got the killer mentality. There's been all of the like Jordan comparisons, which is absurd to compare anybody to Jordan right now. But if you're talking just from the mental standpoint, the killer aspect, I think his quote was he just wants to go out and kill everybody in front of him. That's Kobe Bryant. That's Michael Jordan. I don't think we've seen that type of player in the league since Kobe.
But he does it a little differently than those guys. You know, he does have that killer mentality, but the guy builds people up. Watched that press conference he had with Kat, and he was talking about quit fouling, and he obviously was kind of bossing him around, telling him to get your shit together. But at the same time, he's saying, you know what, Kat's the most skilled player, or he's the best offensive player on our team, and they can't guard him. We need Kat. So he's building up Kat, but at the same time, he's making the expectations a lot higher for him too. So he
Yep.
can be this hard ass, but he's encouraging and he's building too. And people respond to that. If you're being encouraging, they're okay with the critique, and Kat probably needs that.
It's probably polar opposite to what we saw with the Jimmy Butler teams, right?
Exactly.
Like, and that's exciting for us to see, where you don't have to be an asshole to build
To
people
win.
up and still critique them. Yeah.
Right. You can have
Yeah.
high expectations and not just degrade and tear people down. Jimmy Butler he was messed up.
I just think it's cool just to. Obviously, I always preface everything I say with I don't want to get too ahead of myself, and it's just the first round. But I can count on one hand the amount of times I've felt like this in a Minnesota sports team. They're talking on the radio the other day, and it's sure we've gotten excited for teams, and we've filled the Target Field. We've gotten excited when Jimmy Buckets was in town. the Wild will make the playoffs. We feel like, oh, sure, if a couple things go our way, we could make a little noise. We've never really felt this is our year. This team is built for this. Team has statistically and mentally everything that you need: defense, offense, the whole package, depth, shooting, size, and that
Coaching.
goes with any sport. Yeah, well, we'll get to that here in a little bit. Hopefully, he'll be out there on Saturday. It looks like he already
He'll be there.
underwent surgery. They're saying he might have to call in plays from the locker room on a headset.
I read that.
That would be absurd. I've never seen anything like that in any sport. I think a coach in the NCAA tournament got hurt once, and I think he just came out in a knee brace or whatever it was and coached from the sideline. But yeah, it's never been to this level. So torn patellar tendon, that's terrible.
That's a tough recovery too. That's a full year of recovery, and being older and not probably not a great athlete. It's gonna be a tough recovery for Chris Finch. But
They're
Kev, to
always
your point,
nervous with that.
it definitely does feel like a team that has the potential to pull it off. Whether they do or not, it almost doesn't matter. I think winning that one playoff series, the season's a success, especially in a 4-game sweep. Historically, that, like you said, has never happened. But it
I
just
would
feels like this team is built to sustain a long
I would
run.
push back on that a little bit. I think one round is what you expected. Sure, we didn't get the best matchup, but let's say if we actually played up to the level we actually played all year seed wise, and we got a sweep from the 1 to the 8 seed, you'd go, that was expected. This team is a serious contender.
But that's not what we were. We weren't the 1 seed, and we played a team that everyone favored against us.
I agree. But now we go into Denver, and we don't have home court anymore. And now, if we, similar to last year, if we only win one game, and we get walked back to Minneapolis with our heads down, like, it's like, well, it was a fun year. We swept an old team who didn't have a point guard. Like, that would be really disappointing. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying the expectations are at least that I think this next series is going to be super competitive, and at least we're going to take it all the way to 6 or 7 games.
I hate when that happens. When a Minnesota team who's not favored going into the series, even though they have a higher seed, and then they sweep them, and then everyone's, oh, well, the Suns, it's their roster construction. Their stars were aging. Okay, but a week ago, nobody thought the Wolves were even going to beat them. They're saying this was the worst matchup. So which is it? So then...
They can't have it. The cake and eat it, too.
Exactly. So that kind of pisses me off a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, I had on the record Wolves in 6 games, so I was blown away in the 4-game sweep, and it was not like it was an ass kicking. Like they just went out and beat them, and even in game 4, I
Yeah.
think you can argue that was far and away the best game the Suns played. It was easily, and I think it was far and away the worst game the Wolves played, and it still was and it was a lot closer than the other 3 games. But they just put a whooping on that team, and they just beat them down the entire series from a physicality standpoint. And that's why this next round is going to be so intriguing, because the only team in the NBA, in my opinion, at least in the Western Conference, but I think at a larger scale in the entire NBA, that can match the Timberwolves' physicality is the Denver Nuggets. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a slugfest. I'm really excited. I think the Wolves have something going here, and Kev, I think I'm right there with you. I think this team can push it 6, 7 games, and I'm going to say Wolves in 7 for this series. And I think that whoever wins this series, and this isn't a hot take now because I've seen a lot of people saying it, but I think whoever wins this series is far and away the favorite to represent the Western Conference in the NBA Finals this year too. Which is, again, we're getting really far ahead of ourselves here, but
I know. One
it's
game at a time.
it's so exciting.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you feel the level of excitement is, and I just can't. It's dumb how spaced out all the games are, and you just want it to happen because we're hot, we're playing well.
Yeah, I hate that I have to wait till Saturday.
Sure, you want Ants ankles to be 100% healthy, but he's young, he can recoup some of these older guys like Denver, they're just coming off of winning the title last year. You know, their guys are going to get a lot of minutes played on those ankles and those knees, and they're no spring chickens either. Yeah, we'll break that matchup down a little more in depth next podcast before the series officially starts this weekend. But yeah, you can just tell that hopefully the excitement kind of builds. I know, just I'll wrap it up with this, that from what I've noticed going around and talking to people just at work and at the bars and everything, it's, oh yeah, I see they're playing well. They still have to go out there and prove it. People are just not sold yet, and they're just waiting for the roof to fall off type deal. They're not even giving us. I guess maybe it depends on the people you talk to, but it's Minnesota sports. It's just the theory that we're not supposed to make it past one round, and it's a fun year, but
They probably didn't watch the series.
no, it's
I
usually the people who didn't watch.
I mean, even like last year when the Twins won the series against the Blue Jays, did we really think that they were gonna make a run in the World Series? It was fun that
No.
they won a series and they won a game against the Astros, but you didn't get this feeling like, oh, we might be watching something special here. This 4 games, that was like that every single game. Like you thought, okay, this is a team. We got to be watching them. So I think if you actually sat and watched the series, you'd feel a little bit differently about it.
Right. So I think once more people hopefully tune in now that, okay, it's going to be a bigger matchup against the reigning champs. We're going to have a lot of bandwagon fans, but that's fine. We need people to care. I mean, we said it earlier in another episode, we're a basketball state. We should be able to feel the love, but I feel like it's just, especially with hockey not being a thing anymore, Twins aren't exactly playing great. People should be all dialed in the state, and I'm excited for that to hopefully galvanize. And we obviously see that with the ticket prices for Saturday being well over 200 for just to get in.
I got a question for you guys. Do you think this is the best Wolves team ever?
Undoubtedly, yes.
Yeah.
Like I think it was Jim Pete. Shout out to Jim Pete and Michael Grady, by the way. They've been so good this entire season. I'm sad to see them go. But yes, I think Jim Pete said before the season that this is the best Wolves team that he's ever seen, which is cool coming from someone who has been with the team for I think 26 some years and seen all of the KG renditions. I think yes. I think this is the best team. I still don't think that they have. I don't think Anthony Edwards is quite at that MVP KG level of superstardom yet, but I think it's coming soon as now, like in this playoffs, that he's taking that next leap. But the surrounding pieces are just worlds better, in my opinion.
I agree. I was thinking about it today. I think this team sweeps the 03-04 team in 4 games, and it's not even close.
It's always hard to compare eras, but I will just say it has the possibility to with the amount of star power that we do have. Defensive player of the year, size, depth, and then, like Pat said, everyone keeps saying Ant's a couple of years away from really taking this league by storm, but it's like, quit saying it.
I don't know.
You
He
just
did
turn on the games. Sure, he can obviously grow and get better, but he just took down one of the best basketball players of all time. I get Durant's old, but they have 3 longtime All Stars. It's no slouch. He was not phased at all by any of those guys guarding him or walling them up on the other end. I just think we have our guys healthy last year. Obviously, we felt like we could give the Nuggets a little trouble, but we didn't have Jaden, we didn't have Nas. They were both hurt. So it's this year it's a whole different conversation. We got everybody back and we've gotten better. Yeah, I'm really excited to see if we can steal a couple, 1 or 2 on the road. It's going to be really fun when we get back to Target Center. One more thing I will say on the Wolves, when you think about that question of is it one of the best team or one of the teams that we felt the most in our lifetime, like we have a chance, I would say the last time I felt this good about a team for having a chance would probably be 2009.
I think I'm right there with you. I think that was I was very much expecting us to make a Super Bowl run that year. It was the magical Favre year. I think that I'm right there with you, Kev.
Like 2017 was fun, but nobody expected us to go, and especially with Case Keenum.
I
Right.
kind of thought that in 2017, I was like, home Super Bowl, Minneapolis Miracle, like things are just lining up, like it's going to happen. Not
Right.
that I thought that team was one of the best Viking teams that I've ever watched, but just it, I don't know, you just felt like they were going to get kind of hot and make a run.
Team of
But yeah,
Destiny.
right, exactly. But yeah,
Yeah,
2009 is kind of a team where I thought, okay, this team is good.
exactly. So it 15 years ago. Just to think, put that in perspective. If we haven't had this feeling in that long, one, how long is it going to take to come back? Hopefully, it's a yearly thing where we can field a competitive roster on any sport and feel confident about it. I think the Wolves are doing all the right things to get to that point. Obviously, we have to make a little more noise this year to be in that conversation, but yeah, I just let's talk a little more about that
One
Thursday.
one last thing, Kev.
Oh, sure.
A couple years ago on this podcast, we had the discussion: what team do we feel like is closest to a championship? And I think you, Chris, and Juddy, I think you guys all said the Vikings, and I said the Wolves. And this was right after the Rudy Gobert trade. I just want to say, told you.
I guess, yeah,
I mean, but they're the closest.
Easily.
sure. I just feel like the reason why I said the Vikes back then was because the NFL, like anybody has a chance any year, and like all we had to do with Kirk is finally just put together the pieces around him, and we could have been there. Any of those years, obviously, didn't work out. Here we are, moving on to another era. But yeah, with the Timberwolves back then, we felt like we were building something, but we had no idea what it could turn
Yeah.
up to be. We obviously go out, get Tim Connolly, we got Gobert, we bring in Mike Conley, Alexander Walker, bunch of pieces. This team's nowhere near to being complete where we could see it for a long-term contender, but you can just go down the list for all of the different reasons, which is why sure you let Joker get his, but I think we can match up.
Oh, and then also one more thing. I just want to say, Karl Anthony Towns has improved so much since the last time I followed the Wolves. This series, he's not a great defender still, but he is playing defense. He is showing effort. He's making the right and the extra pass. He gets those dumb tic tac fouls, but some of them are just bad calls.
Yeah.
For the most part, he keeps his head. He kept his head this series. I think Mike Conley does a nice job of reeling him in, and Ant also.
Yeah.
But Towns really has improved in not just like his skills and his game, but like the intangibles. His maturity level's gone up. I mean, it was really low a couple years back, but I just want to say shout out to Towns. Like he really has improved and become a key factor in this on this team.
I was gonna say, so I think I saw someone today say Towns is one of the very few examples of someone who can do less but be better by doing less. And that has happened this playoffs. And I think part of that was is him just kind of getting reacclimated to the team after the injury. But Tom, I think you nailed it. Like the maturity in this series and the willingness to step back, let other guys flourish, make that other pass, be a willing defender, even if it's not always the most effective with some of those fouls. It's been so cool to watch. And I think this is just a testament to how this team just gels. This team gels together so well, and I think that's why we're talking about championships for Timberwolves basketball, which I don't know that I've ever said that
I didn't
out
think it
loud
ever
before.
happened.
Yeah,
I mean, and then when they need him, he drills that deep three. That was a huge three at the end of the game, or towards the end of the game in game 4, and he stepped up and hit it. So for him to just kind of take a step back, take a play second fiddle to Ant. Yeah, I'm really excited about what he's done.
Yeah, I obviously think this series you see a lot of that. Obviously, with you not watching a lot of the other games, you don't see kind of where he's still struggled before the injury with the same old towns. And sure, you could blame that on the regular season and whatnot, but I think, like you mentioned, that maturity has stood out. Mentioned that before this series, Finch really went into it in detail with the team on complaining to the refs and how it's not going to help them in this series or any series. And he showed them a compilation of videos of them complaining to the ref and then what happens after that, the rest of the game in the next series. And it doesn't work in our favor ever. So whether that's swallowing his pride, if he's learning, or if he's just doing this temporarily, I don't know, but we'll take it. This regular season, he a lot of the times was back to his old self, just yelling and screaming at the refs. Kind of led into a snowball effect when he's one of our longtime leaders, and everyone sees him do that. Ant started to do a lot of it as well, and you obviously see there's a different mindset when postseason rolls around and more of a business approach. Hey, just keep your mouth shut, get back on defense. It's going to end up hurting you more than it's going to help you. Refs can't win you the game, but they can lose you the game. Don't let them lose the game even more for you. I'm glad that Scott Foster didn't lose us that game.
And the Wolves got a good taste of that too. I mean, game 4, if the Suns didn't get the fouls, it would have been a 20-point blowout. Yeah. And even in game 3, I think if the Suns didn't get some of the calls that they got, it would have even been a bigger blowout.
Right.
Like the Suns really got a lot of free throws.
I am a little worried about that if Finch is not able to be the normal Chris Finch that he is on the sideline, that maybe the players might resort to, it's like a substitute teacher, let's resort to our old habits. Finch isn't in our ear screaming at us to get back and certain things. I'm a little nervous about that, but I think they're still in fine hands with Mike and Nori and our assistants handling.
Well, what you're going to need is if Anthony Edwards is the leader that I just talked about, or that we've all talked about, this is his time where he's going to have to stand up and keep the guys in line. And Mike Conley too. Mike Conley's been around for feels like 30 years. You know, he's going to have to kind of be that coach on the court even more. So I think those are two guys that definitely can kind of be the extended Chris Finch if he's not on the sidelines. I think he will be, though.
Hopefully.
I think he will be.
Crutches. Give him one of the rolling scooters.
The problem is that he's going to have to keep his legs straight the whole time.
I know.
So he's going to be in this long brace.
Or elevated. So they're saying maybe he could be behind the bench.
That's what I heard. In row 2 and let the leg rest on the back of a chair in
That's absurd.
the bench.
But logically that makes the most sense. And he's just going to be yelling to the other coaches to tell them what to say.
And I will say, I think Mike Nori is a really good coach. I think that he has a potential to be a head coach in this league in the future. I think he's really good at what he does. Even like some of the play calls that he dials up at the end of game 4, that inbounds play when Ant broke free for the dunk late in the game there. I thought that was a great play too. And it sounds like the team really rallies around him too. I know when Finch was sick earlier this year, I think it was the Cleveland game. I think they ended up losing that game, but it sounded like he very much had the support of the entire roster, and those guys really will go to war for him too. So again, I hope Finch is out there and has a voice and can coach as much as he can. But gosh, talk about Minnesota sports and like where we're at. Of course, patellar tendon of the head coach blows in the first round of the playoffs. Like it's just absurd that we're talking about this right now, and unfortunate.
You think what's next?
That's kind of what I thought when Anthony Edwards rolled his ankle there in game 4 too. I'm like, oh, here we go. They're gonna sweep the series, but Ant's got this ankle injury that's gonna keep him out for 2 weeks.
He literally has rubber ankles. I swear to God, it's the
he did it twice.
He's done this 10 times this series, and then in the games down the stretch of the season when we need him to just stay healthy. Like, we don't care about the game, man. And he'll just roll his ankle, like he'll move. His foot will move to his leg will move before his foot does, and then he
Yep.
gets caught and rolls it on his own. So I honestly think it's partially due to his shoes being like grippy all the way on the sides too, not just the bottoms. Because if you're shuffling with a normal sneaker that doesn't have grips along the sides of the soles, you wouldn't necessarily. Maybe it could be a different type of ankle roll, but you wouldn't necessarily get it caught as much. I feel like.
Hey, Twins won.
Nice.
9 in a row, baby.
9 in a row.
We'll talk.
Maybe we'll have a podcast about the Twins. They keep this up.
There we go.
Let's get it to 15 first. All right, let's move on to the other team that we tend to talk about sometimes. Minnesota Vikings got their draft complete. I'll pull up their draft from this last weekend. Obviously, we talked about the trade up. We got our quarterback. Do you think we had to move up? Sure. Go and get your guy. It makes no sense to just sit back and risk the chance him being gone. Then what? Then you're stuck with Bo Nix, which I said I was fine with, but I'm sure a lot of people would beg to differ.
I think there's a huge drop-off between J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. So if all you have to do is move a couple, third, fourth round, fifth round picks, whatever.
And I'm sure we've all
was,
seen the Sean Payton clip going around talking about, I really swindled the Vikings pretending that we were interested in moving up, but Bo Nix was our guy. That's the biggest load of bullshit I have ever. Well, that's not true because Sean Payton
He talks a lot.
unloads a lot of
Yeah.
bullshit. But that to me that is the most absurd thing. Yeah, I'm really going to stick it to the Vikings while making sure that an AFC rival gets additional draft pick compensation. No, that's not how that works.
Joke's on us. We got the guy we wanted. Like, good one.
Ha 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 ha. Yeah, I saw it came out today that I was just talking with Tom earlier that the draft room convo happened with the Jets before they made the pick or traded with us. They talked to the Raiders and who was the other team, Tom?
The Saints.
The Saints.
Interesting.
Raiders and the Saints, but they didn't talk to the Broncos.
Interesting.
Yeah, suck it, Sean. But still makes sense. Two very quarterback needy teams reached out, probably said what would it take to hop the Vikings here.
Well, the Saints probably would have moved up for a tackle, no?
Yeah. Well,
You think so?
we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's probably another reason why the Jets didn't want to move down to 14.
Right.
But
Because they
also,
want tackles.
I feel like it's always a quarterback. You don't, with how much teams had to give up, or they would have to give up to move up from, what did the Saints have, 16?
14.
Oh, 14.
It's Jamison Williams. And now, who was the other big one? Marcus Davenport a few years back. Wasn't he the one in the Lamar Jackson draft that
Yeah.
the Saints moved up for? Like a lot
They
of
gave-
draft capital?
I think
Well,
it
they
was a future
also-
first.
They also moved up to get Chris Olave.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
They do
Kev,
that.
I went back and watched a little bit of one of our old podcasts, and we were talking about that draft and how the Saints picked up a second first-round pick that year, and we all thought, oh, they're going to move up to take, I think we were suggesting Malik Willis or somebody like
Yep.
that. And in reality, they moved up to get, I'm pretty sure it was Chris Olave.
Yeah. I remember
It worked
that.
out okay
That was,
for them.
Yeah,
it was a good pick. They could still use a
I
quarterback.
like Chris Olave. I wish he was on the Saints.
He's very good. Yeah.
He's real good.
It looks like the trade, we went down, or hopped up one pick, and it was a fourth rounder and a fifth rounder in this year's draft. And I think we got an extra sixth rounder, or 203.
Yeah.
So we lost it on the trade chart, per se, but
I don't care.
if you're going to argue with 2 day 3 picks over getting your desired quarterback, that's tough. Like, those people are going to be out there still in the world and say, well, the Vikings could have drafted another offensive linebacker. It's okay. What are the odds that guy works out? So
Yeah, and Kwesi's kind of getting dogged more for the Dallas Turner trade up than the J.J. McCarthy trade up, because I don't know, somebody put out a tweet that all the draft capital that they gave up equals like an early first round pick or a mid first round pick or something like that to move up and get Dallas Turner. But it's okay if if those were the only things that you measure a trade, yeah, sure, we lost that trade. But you got to think about it in the grand scheme of things. We actually kept a real first round pick, not the equivalent to a first round pick. We kept a real first round pick, and actually two of them probably. Still got our quarterback, still got our defensive end. Next year, there's still a possibility of getting draft capital from Atlanta to fill in some of the lack of draft capital there. And if that doesn't happen, if we want, we can trade out of our first round pick and we can pick up whatever capital we want or need.
Yeah.
Like there's a ton of options to get all that back. And we got the best defensive player on the board.
Well, and that's what
too.
Two 21-year-olds in the draft too, which I thought was fantastic for first rounders too. But you talked about the equivalent of a early first round pick is the value that they gave. I think most people would view Dallas Turner as an early first round talent, and because of all the offensive players in this draft getting pushed down, that made that happen. And I also think that people are piecing together the two second round picks that ended up being pick 23. And I don't think you have to look at everything as a whole piece rather than these individual things. Cause it was pretty clear that those picks were put together to get 23 to try and piece up a package that would entice someone to move up for a quarterback. The fact that we did not need to move up for a quarterback, I think, is just icing on the cake to where you had the luxury to move up again to get the best defensive player on their board. So I can't complain about it. You're taking home run swings and that's what we want. I don't care about backup players in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. I want guys who are going to be potential all pros, and I think Dallas Turner gives you that potential.
Will Anderson says that he's better than him. He's saying that he said Dallas Turner is better than me, and Will Anderson was Defensive Rookie of the Year last year.
So he's saying that he's better than. He's not really. Well, they're friends. I'm sure he's
right. Yeah, you can take that with a grain of salt, but I don't know. The guy's pretty talented.
Yeah, he's also super likable.
See what he could do.
Have you watched? Yeah, like any of the interviews, both him and JJ McCarthy are just so likable. Yeah. So that's also fun to think about when you have these guys who are probably going to be the faces of your offense and defense in the next couple of years here. So it's fun to have guys that you're excited to root for. Yeah, exactly.
But then the worst part of me just thinks of who else was a really nice guy? Louis Sean.
Was he? I don't know.
He's still, yeah.
I never watched anything about him.
He was a great guy. He's still around. he was a great player, let me tell you. Did so many great things in college. Yeah, last time the Vikings we talked about this in our mock drafts, right? The Vikings draft history episode. We haven't taken a defensive lineman since Sharif Floyd in the first round.
Was it Erasmus James?
Erasmus James was the last pass rusher.
Yeah.
So we've never done it. We've been able to get value out of these day 2, day 3 picks. The Everson Griffins, the Brian Robinsons. Of course, we traded for Jared Allen, so you could say technically we recouped first round value there. But yeah, we've never really done it in the first round or even like early in the second round, or we've never really gone for a guy. We just kind of like, we'll take a DJ Wanham, Patrick Jones III, we'll see if he can develop into something. I like going for it. It's exciting.
It is.
All of the positions that you end up paying premium money for, and we get a 5th-year option on 2 of them, quarterback and edge rusher.
Yeah, premium positions. That's another thing too. Is the positional value for Dallas Turner is extremely high.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, like Pat said, if this is a normal draft where it's a little more balanced offensively and defensively, he's a top 6 pick. if there's
And I
not
think
6 quarterbacks going in the first round.
right. And I think there's a lot of talk. It sounded like he was very sure that he was headed to Atlanta at pick 8. Like he very easily, nobody would have blinked an eye had the Falcons picked him
Right.
8th overall in this draft too.
Yeah, I was super excited to see him kind of slipping down. I think when we were all watching the draft, we didn't think that none of us predicted us to trade up with our second pick. Remember when we were talking about if we're going to keep 11, okay, but what we can maybe move down with 23 and moving to the end of the first round or maybe even early day 2 and get another second rounder, get a third rounder. That'd be fun to have more ammo to shoot your shot at these guys. We did
We
just the
kind of
opposite.
touched on it a little bit. We touched on it a little bit in the one mock that we did when Byron Murphy fell. I think in our draft he fell at 17 or something, and we were kind of talking about how, if we had 23 again, there's a chance that some of these defensive players did fall, and we would be able to have a shot to move up if we felt we wanted to. So we touched on it a little bit.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely didn't see a scenario like that. And then Latu going at 15 was also,
That was a
also
surprise.
another little surprise. Yeah. I was excited to see the Vikings name pop up there, and sure we gave up a lot there too, but whatever. We get another guy who can impact us right away and well into the future. I'm really excited to watch our defense. I still think we need more of a threat on the defensive line, something we didn't address in the draft. Obviously, we still have some money to play with free agency. We'll see what we have with the extension to JJ and any other contracts we want to restructure here.
I kind of don't think they're going to address defensive tackle at all. I think that they've got their guys. I think Jerry Tillery, Bullard, Harrison Phillips, I think that's kind of where they're set. And they're just gonna rush the passer. They're just gonna rush the quarterback and maybe blitz to stop the run. I don't know. If they were going to address it, they would have in free agency more than Jerry Tillery, and they were after
it just makes you wonder,
the defensive tackle from Miami. But
yeah, we were really in on Wilkins.
Yeah. They didn't address it in the draft either. They could have, if they wanted to, they could have traded up to get Byron Murphy.
Hey, we drafted Levi Drake Rodriguez in the 7th round. Maybe he is our answer right under our nose.
He's a pass rusher.
He is a pass rusher, and he looks very cool. If we're just talking all aesthetics, he looks like someone who is going to have double-digit sacks in the NFL. So welcome to the squad. Late round flyer, I love it. And as we're kind of transitioning into some of these later round picks or you undrafted free agents, Gabriel Murphy, is that the name, right? Gabriel Murphy. He played a huge percentage of his snaps last season at the 3 technique. And I think a lot of his kind of the flaws that they were seeing, he didn't have a great athletic profile, short arms. And what they did to kind of combat that was they just had him bull rush and use kind of some of that quickness that you typically see an edge rusher have going up against guards. So, Tom, as you're saying, like just kind of using the pass rush on the interior, do we see more of these guys slide inside on blitz packages to kind of combat some of that lack of size or true defensive tackles on the roster? I think it's right up Flores' alley, right? What weird blitz schemes and what weird hybrid type positions can I put guys in to see and maximize their skill sets too?
How many times did we watch New England with one defensive player with their hand in the ground?
Yeah,
all the time. When he was calling the plays in New England, that happened a lot. Obviously, they're not going to do it the entire game, but they're gonna mix it up a lot more, and probably a lot more than they did last year. They just didn't have the personnel to do it. You look at some of the other UDFAs, that Bo Richter too. He's kind of in the same build as every other defensive end edge player that we've picked up in the last 2 months. He's 6'1", 245, 250, and a good athlete. And so it's just they've got this mold of what they want on their defensive line, and that's what they're going to go with.
Yeah, I'm all of that is nice with all of what Flores can do with blitzing and everything. At the end of the day, you still have to be able to stop the run and run the football. So until Chris will be right with me on this take, I know he will because he always says the same thing. But until we can for sure stop the run first, and then because the 49ers, as long as they're in the NFC, that we've never been able to stop their run. So unless we can stop that, and as long as we can establish some form of run game, doesn't have to be great, some form of what we had last year or the year before, haven't seen much improvement there. It matters. We need a left guard. I'm nervous about that, and I'm nervous about our nose tackle. We don't really have Harrison Phillips, sure, but I really think we need more beef in there.
You realize Harrison Phillips had 97 tackles last year?
He had a quietly good year. He never does anything that'll really wow you.
It's never behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
Right.
No, Kev, I totally agree. I 100% agree. I wish they would have picked up. Now, Tennessee kind of screwed things up, and they took Tavondre Sweat way too early.
Really?
People were thinking with the DUI, he was going to fall to the 4th round, and so I was like, okay, 108, that should be our target. Yeah. And then I was really hoping Christian Boyd was going to fall to him at 108, but he went...
Dwayne Carter.
Yeah, Dwayne Carter. Or maybe he was Boyd still in the... I can't remember if Boyd, but Dwayne Carter was another guy that I really wanted, and he went just a few picks ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They're going to really have to prove
know
it.
Something because from the outside looking in, it was like that's one of our needs. What we could see us taking Byron Murphy in the first round. Maybe we could trade down and take Newton out of Illinois. He ends up going to... Where did Newton end up going?
I cannot remember where he went, but he went...
He went to the Commies. He went to the Commies.
Washington had a very good draft.
He was their second pick in the first round there.
And if you just seeing the second and third round, there were so many defensive tackles that were flying off the board, and it's really hard to find an impact guy in the draft when you don't have a second and third round pick to mess around with. We have 0 day 2 picks. So I kind of see, and I would put edge at a higher position premium than defensive tackle right now. So I totally understand why they were targeting Dallas Turner in that trade up in the first round. But there were a ton of D tackles that were flying off the board in day 2 and even early day 3. I guess and again, I totally agree with both of you and with Chris when he jumps on that it is extremely important to stop the run and to establish the run game. And I just think with how the board played out, the value just wasn't necessarily there. So when I'm talking about loading up on pass rushers, it's almost like what can we do in the interim until we can fix this? And I would imagine that next year's draft and next year's free agency class, that's a top priority, assuming that some of these more premium positions that we were able to pick up pan out to some level.
Johnny Newton went 36th, so he fell to day 2. It was really interesting kind of to see the trickle effect there with the defense. A lot of, like we mentioned, a lot of those guys we were targeting ended up going early on day 2 or into round 3. But yeah, you just kind of would have liked us to... We didn't have much options, to be honest, when it fell all the way to us.
I think they went a little higher than people were expecting to. I think that once Tavondre Sweat went, because I think he was was he the first or maybe he was the second after Newton. But once those two guys went, they just flew off. I think I heard that there was 9 defensive tackles that went on day 2.
Wow.
I think that sounds right. And Tom, your guy Carter, we were consistently getting him in the 4th round in mocks or even later, right?
Yeah.
And he was he 3rd round?
4th, 5th.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he was at the very end of the 3rd. I think he went maybe 5 picks before he went to the Bills, I think. But 5 or 6 picks before the Vikings. I was disappointed.
Yep.
I think the Seahawks are going to be kind of a fun defense to watch this year. They got Byron Murphy at 16, adding him to that secondary they have, and the young edge rushers. I mean, they had Mafe. Who else do they have? They have some talent.
They got good cornerbacks. That's all I know. Not a big Seahawks guy.
No?
No. I think I saw, though, that next year's draft, there's, in the way too early mock drafts, there's 3 or 4 I think they're defensive tackles that are going in the first round. So maybe that's what they're kind of eyeing up. It'd be funny to be scouting defensive tackles a year in advance like we did the quarterbacks this year. But
So
they
Seattle
are, I
has
bet.
Leonard. They have Leonard Williams, Jerron Reed, both guys they acquired. Then Boy Mafe, and then
first,
Nawasu or whatever.
it's kind of interesting how you look at teams like Detroit, who they really have rebuilt their roster from the inside out, and the Vikings are kind of going outside in with
like
Kwesi. You know, you go the safety. In his first draft, you take Scene and Booth, and then the next year it's Addison on the outside, and even this year to an extent with Dallas Turner being on the outside too. It's kind of interesting. And last year they really went outside in with Mekhi Blackman too. So
For sure.
I don't
Mekhi
know.
Becton is on the Eagles now. He just signed the other day.
Oh, good for him. He's huge.
His dad's bigger.
Is he actually?
Yeah, you don't remember that draft day video?
No.
It was crazy. He tried to stand up and hug him, and man, those draft day videos are always great.
Okay, so one of the UDFAs we got, his name's Jeremy Flax. Have you guys looked at this guy?
Yes.
He's 300. He's listed at 363.
Monster.
He's a guard.
Offensive?
Yeah.
Put him at nose.
Might as well. Maybe
Maybe
switch him over.
Plan. I love it, Kwesi.
I can't remember what school he's from, but that dude is huge.
I haven't really dug into our UDFA guys too in depthly yet. Obviously, I will a little closer to when they're on the field running around. I guess let before we get into those guys, let's go over the rest of our draft picks here. A 4th round pick, so our first one that we had since the first round, and we get Kyrie Jackson, a guy who I took a decent amount in my mock drafts, probably either in the 3rd round or maybe even in the 2nd I saw him going, just with the level of talent he had. And obviously he transferred over from JUCO then to Alabama. He has a really interesting story if you guys haven't gone into it yet, but ended up at Oregon here this last year and played really well there. I get nervous with lengthy corners just because the speed thing. If you get burned in this league, no amount of length and size can help you recoup from that. And obviously that just goes back to Cam Dantzler getting burned down the sidelines, or Caleb Evans having iffy coverage every now and then. I like the lengthy corners, sure. So does Flores, but it's something about just teams being able to attack you in that. But I think we'll be able to use him in certain situations that'll take most advantage of his capabilities.
And it's a 4th round pick. If he does turn out to be Cameron Dantzler, it's not a huge thing. Personally, I like getting a bigger defensive back. I think back to Jaron Curse. You could use him in a way like that, but I think he's probably a better athlete than Jaron Curse was.
Yeah.
I really wanted James Williams, who was kind of the same mold as Kyrie Jackson, size-wise at least. So when they took Jackson, I was pretty happy that they got kind of the same type of defensive back. But I'm excited. It'll be nice to see what he can do.
6'4", 195.
I think he ran 4.5.
4.5 flat.
4.5.
Yeah. So that's not, he's not going to keep up with Tyreek, but he's also not going to get burned. And having that extra inch or two on his wingspan that will help him if he does get burned. So
yeah.
I see him kind of as another one of those hybrid type players. I think he was another guy who kind of rushed the passer a little bit from the cornerback position at Oregon last year. I think he had a couple sacks and a handful of pressures last year too, if I'm not mistaken. So I think again a guy that you can kind of just do some different things with, which I think right now as Flores tries to kind of mask some of the holes that we have. This is a guy who can be a rotational player as a rookie, fourth round pick, which I think is awesome and needed for this defense. And I think he has experience playing both man and zone, so I think that's a nice little tool to have in our tool bag, or B Flow's tool bag on defense. And I think it was Saban that said that he was the most talented defensive back on that Alabama team. With we saw all of these Terry and Arnold, like going back a couple of years when he was on that team, there were a ton of first round picks that were on that team. So just for him to come out and say that Jackson was the most talented D back on that roster, I think is really exciting. And of course, it leads to some question marks too. Like, okay, so why was he a fourth round pick? Why did he end up transferring? Like, what's going on with some of that? And I think some of that is about the story. He lost interest in football for a little bit too, which is totally fine. But again, if you're getting a guy that is that talented and has that much potential, I know he's an older prospect coming in, but I'm really excited. I'm excited to see Flores work with him, and I think he can bring some juice to the defense as soon as this next year.
Yeah, Kev kind of alluded to it, but his story is pretty interesting because at one point wasn't he trying to be a professional gamer or something
Yeah.
like that,
He's
and then
top
he
250 in 2K.
oh yeah 2K, that's what it was.
Yep.
And then I think he worked at a grocery store for a while and made employee of the month.
Yeah.
So the grocery store thing I really love because this means that this guy, he'll do whatever. Nothing is
Yeah.
beneath him. So if the Vikings ask him to be the gunner, I would assume he'd be the best gunner in the league. If they ask him to play inside or outside,
Look out, Najee Thompson.
yeah, like he'll go out and do it and hit and put the effort in. So the question marks about did he like football? Yeah, that does bother me a little bit. But you see what he did outside of football and then realized, you know what, I do like football, and so he came back to it is kind of cool.
And some of
He's
this,
old.
like, he's an older prospect for sure. But
That's okay.
some of this, do they love the game stuff is so overblown. First, if you're talking about anybody, does anybody love their job? At some point, a job is a job, no matter what you do. But a guy who we spent a lot of time in the first half of this podcast talking about, Anthony Edwards, that was the biggest question mark for him coming
Yeah.
out of college was, does he love basketball or does he want to go play football? Having interests outside of your job or outside of your profession is extremely normal. And I think that it just gets overblown so much by the media as you're digging, trying to find these red flags in guys. So I, to some extent, yeah, it's a question mark, but I think it is overblown as well.
Yeah, just looking at ages of guys that we have currently on our roster. Let's see here. I believe Byron Murphy Jr. is only 1 year older than our new rookie, Kyrie Jackson, and Murphy's in his fifth year, sixth year now. Just put that in perspective.
I,
But
I don't know. Do you think that matters for a cornerback? I mean, it's not like he's
no,
going to be on the team for 10 years. Even if you take a corner at 22, he's not going to be on their team when he's 32. It's not like you're taking a quarterback. So
Right.
I don't think the older prospect thing
I just think
matters.
it's always
that much.
fascinating to look
But
at.
yeah,
All right, let's move a little further down the draft. Just some flyers that we took here. Moving into these, we didn't have a fifth round pick, correct? So it's just 2 6 and 2 7. We took a kicker.
we got a kicker.
We
Ladies and
got our guy.
gentlemen, we got him.
I thought we already had a kicker, so that's why I was kind of surprised.
Yeah,
but
well,
also,
no,
who cares?
we want that Romo guy for kickoffs because
Yep.
he played in the or XFL or
We're
USFL.
not gonna hold two kickers.
So, yeah, we are.
No, we're not.
We're gonna have a kickoff specialist and then a 50-yard specialist with is it Reichert?
Yeah.
Richard?
I don't know how to pronounce, but
Reichard.
Reichert. And we started a little kicker run too, boys. It was, I think there were three kickers in a six pick frame, and the Vikings kicked it off at that point. I think Jacksonville and LA both went kicker very shortly after us. So I thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
I,
turns out we took Walter Rouse before him at pick 177. Pardon me on that. Big guy out of Oklahoma. Senior. Looks like he played a decent amount of football. He has that going for him. I don't really know too much about him other than the fact that he's huge. But
Gave up zero
Drew
sacks
Samia
last year.
2.0.
I
Ooh.
think the stat was he gave up zero sacks in college last year, and he's another guy with a very interesting background to it. It sounds like he's a very smart guy. I believe he's getting his biomedical engineering degree currently or finishing that up. Never hurts to have some intelligence on the offensive line, and I think again when you're aiming in the sixth round, your best hope is that this guy eventually develops into a swing tackle type of a player, and anything more than that is icing on the cake for sure.
Well,
agreed.
now that isn't Blake Brandel going to play left guard?
Yeah,
So
Apparently, that's our
we need
plan.
a swing tackle now.
Yeah.
Also, back to the kicker thing. Should we address that the Bears took Torrey Taylor in the was it the
fourth.
third?
I think it was early
The
fourth.
fourth. Yeah.
Early fourth?
Yeah. So I hope he's terrible, but
I mean, I guess he
not.
technically he was probably the best player on that Iowa offense. Good for them.
A lot of
Good for them.
experience.
The Bears had an interesting draft. I guess we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah, they only had
too.
4 picks and they used one of them
Yeah.
on a punter.
Makes no sense. But whatever. They've probably had 5 million picks from the years previous, so. All right, Michael Jurgens, we took center, I believe, out of Wake Forest. Could maybe play guard. Another senior, played a lot of football. Don't know exactly what our plan is with him. Maybe he'll finally kick Bradbury to the curb.
You can't. You can't get rid of Bradbury.
Is he related to Cam Jurgens? Did anybody notice?
No idea.
No
I
idea.
hope so.
Okay. I know Cam Jurgens is on the Eagles, and he was a top prospect coming out. Yeah, so just another flyer, and then we got our guy Levi Drake Rodriguez, who has a mane of hair from Texas A&M
Commerce.
Commerce.
They dug
That's
deep
not
for
really
that
school.
one.
Yeah,
I feel like he's like a Madden makeup player, creative player with cool name, like you said, Pat. He looks sweet, pass rushing defensive tackle from the smallest school you can think of. It probably isn't even in Madden, but
Some of the funniest things I saw about him too were just the discrepancies between what they listed him at height and weight wise. I think he was listed at 6'3", 300 pounds, and I think I read a few places that he might actually be more like 6 foot, 255 or 260. Like they're just a huge
nobody
range of
knows.
yeah, like where that type of school. Let's put on the roster page. This guy's 6'8", 450 pounds. He's just a monster.
He was named the MVP of the Tropical Bowl in January.
did he go to a Senior Bowl or what's the other one? The Shrine Bowl or something?
East West Shrine Game. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Shrine Game.
It's just saying Tropical Bowl. He was first team All Southland Conference honors. Had 7.5 tackles for a loss, 5.5 sacks. But yeah, he's got a little wiggle.
He
could be
probably
Oh yeah.
just like how have kind of a size that they want playing edge. They have a size that they want playing at defensive tackle, and so I'm sure he kind of fits in with that. But if you look at the roster, there's nobody less than 290, and there's nobody more than 307.
Yep.
They're
You
all
know
about
who that pick made me think of after reading stuff?
more.
Hercules Mataafa.
Oh,
I'm not gonna get
UDFA
too
from
excited.
Washington State.
He for where we got Hercules, he defied
played?
odds and made
Yeah.
the team and played snap. I would say it was a success for him.
He was my dad's favorite player.
I know that's why I'm always skeptical on which players are his favorite because last year it was Pace and that worked out. He
That
just
did
likes
work.
any UDFA guy.
Not any. There's a few. He really loves Bo Richter and Murphy. Those are his two guys this year.
Nice. I
Yeah,
think
I
that
guess.
the corner that we picked up in UDFA, I think people had like fourth or fifth round grades on him too.
Yeah. Let me
I
see
think
if I
he
can find that.
I think he could be a guy that makes the roster. And then,
McGlothern,
Oh,
yeah,
Dwight McGlothern, out of Arkansas. Go Hogs.
man, we are just going to have so many cornerbacks that are all about the same talent level. They're
Yeah,
all
this guy's 6'2".
average. They're all average cornerbacks. There's no drop off. There's no peak.
that's
This
very
guy doesn't
fair.
even have a picture. That's how unknown he is. All
We
right.
also got a receiver out of Mercer, and I was just looking into
We
him.
Yeah,
got
And
two.
two receivers out of Mercer.
both out of Mercer?
Both.
Uh,
Yeah.
That's incredible. Okay, I only looked into the one guy who I'm assuming had the better numbers, but he looks like a guy who could play a little bit too. So
Is it the
that
long?
wide
He's got long hair.
I don't remember. I don't remember. He had over 1,000
Ty
yards last
James.
year, maybe.
No.
There's Ty James out of Mercer,
What's
and
the other
then
one?
Devron Harper.
Yeah, him. I looked him up.
He's
He
5'8".
looks really fun to watch. But yeah, he's 5'8", and I think they timed him at 4'6'9".
Whoa.
What?
That's the one place I don't know. That might
Wow.
not be accurate, but that's the one.
We'll see if I can find any video.
I think that was
Wow.
his RAS score or RAS score. I think they had him listed at 4. I'm pretty sure it was him. It was
That's
pretty
not
funny.
great. That's not great. But speaking of UDFAs, if this is a trend moving forward where we've seen Quasi go out and get the top ranked UDFA 2 years in a row and invest like guaranteed money into these guys, I love it. You can even go back and say there were some pretty big question marks about the day three of the players that we took. A lot of just kind of, I think Kevin said this earlier, but you're throwing darts on the wall. But like last year with Avon Pace Jr. and this year with Gabriel Murphy, you're getting two guys who are probably going to like in Avon Pace Jr. in his case start and play extremely meaningful snaps. And Murphy, I think, is a rotational guy immediately. That's just so awesome to see. I think it was outside of Thielen for Rick's class, we didn't see a ton of success of those undrafted guys. So it's exciting to see them just prioritize. Hey, these guys are highly rated. They fell for
Marcus
whatever
Sherrills,
reason.
C.J. Ham. There's a handful.
Fair, but I'm talking about more impact type players.
Wow, the
Not that
slander.
CJ. Whoa, not that CJ
I was
Ham.
gonna say
I'm the
C.J.
biggest.
Ham
Pro
I'm
and
Bowler.
Marcus
I'm the
Sherrills. Are you just?
I'm the I'm the biggest CJ Ham fan out there. So no slander whatsoever. But when we're talking about like guys who are gonna play huge snap share percentages or impact in terms of getting sacks and those numbers that show up in the box score compared to and nice third down blocks that CJ Ham might have or not dropping a fair catch, which Marcus Sherrills was very, very good at for a number of years.
I got to right the ship on Devron Harper. He ran a 4.39 40-yard dash.
Hey,
Okay, I thought that was weird because I thought he looked faster when I was watching him. But I thought
So if
you know what? I get my
Devron's
sevens and my
fans,
threes mixed up a lot. So
one of
that's my bad,
Devron's
guys.
fans is gonna hate me out there. All right, so yeah, just some names to keep your eyes open for when it comes to mini camp and practices. If you guys get down to Egan, I know we're gonna want to get down there for sure and keep our eyes
Yeah,
on
we should.
Mr.
We should make a day
Mankato.
of it. The three or Chris too. The four of us. We should all go down and make a day of training camp.
be fun.
It would be good to see Sam Darnold in action.
And
I'm
Nick
excited.
Mullins. You mean Nick Mullins? The QB3 competition is going to be fantastic, and we're going to be there for it. Reporting live, Jaron Hall versus Nick Mullins. It's going to be a beautiful thing.
I suppose it, from this point of the season standpoint, it doesn't hurt to have four quarterbacks who can sling it. You usually bring in a camp body anyway. Sure, let it four quarterbacks go out there and throw it around, see who does it the best.
back to the UDFA thing, it kind of also, we've talked about how some people don't like what Kwesi did with the draft, but that's not with the not adding in the UDFA's in context as well too.
Yep.
Pat, like you said, we got some of the top UDFA guys in the last 2 years. Yep. And have been pretty meaningful, but they don't get included into the draft class unless somebody's really deep diving into results. So it's a little unfair to judge this year's draft solely based on the people taken in those 7 rounds when you got some good guys coming on the UDFA.
Totally.
Yeah, something to keep your eyes out open for. Now that the draft is over, maybe we could keep our eyes open for a possibility of some free agency moves. I know our name's been thrown around. I think, was it Doogie was saying we're talking to Tyler Boyd about possibly bringing him in. That was another position I saw we didn't really address outside of our Mercer wide receivers here in the UDFA. But, yeah, it just kind of seems like KJ Osborne went out the door. We didn't really address that spot. Powell's going to be back, but I think somebody has to step up. We signed Trent Sherfield earlier this offseason. He's not even a lock to make the team. I feel like the Vikings will pick up somebody like a Jarvis Landry or just a random slot name drop.
Zay Jones got cut today from Jacksonville. He'd be another interesting wide receiver 3 candidate, late camp edition as well.
Sure. I just wonder. It all comes down to money. What does a guy like him want at this stage in his career? Odell, he's going to wait out until
he's never going to sign
camp.
Again.
I looked up the list of free agents, and it was a decent list still for guys comparative to what you could have brought in with a 4th or 5th round receiver. Michael Gallup just got signed, I think, today or yesterday to Vegas. There's still really good, capable receivers out there. And then Dalton Reisner, he's still out there. Please go and sign him ASAP.
$5 million.
Literally, just that's so frustrating. I feel bad for him. You're such a cool player to have. It's just we don't need him. Blake Brandel, you're up. Whatever.
Brandel's good. I like Brandel.
Numbers.
He filled in for, was it Darius or O'Neal, whoever it was, not last year but the year before. Like he looked pretty good.
Yeah. It just gives me vibes of like when we've had backup guys from years before start the season.
He's not Oliudo though.
It never ends well when we do that. It gives me the Twins vibes. Yeah, we'll let Sonny Gray walk, and then we'll just roll out there with the guys we got. We'll be fine. Chris Paddock, Louis Varland, we'll figure it out. It's a different episode. Yeah, it's so many fun signings with the Vikings. We have a lot more upcoming here in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, Timberwolves starting this weekend. We're going to have a lot more content based around them. Like we mentioned, super exciting. I can't wait for that to start. This weekend we'll have another episode coming later this week on that, previewing that series. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Skol.
Skol.
How?
I got 'em.